Hey there, and welcome back to another Kurt's Corner. Sorry, I'm checking everything, making sure it's good. But today's topic is electronics, and this one is very kind of all over the place for me because my first electronic was a cell phone. And I didn't even get that until I had the money to pay for it myself. But it was an old track phone that was like this big, and it was a flip phone, and you just had to T9 that stuff. I think it's what they call it now. I don't know. Uh, but then it wasn't until 2 or 3 years later I got a PlayStation that I paid for myself, used actually, from a game store. And that's when I fell in love with Crash Bandicoot. If anybody remembers the Crash, it was like the it game. No, there was another one, Spyro. Spyro was another good one, and I just played those. Um, and I didn't. I am 37, and I didn't get my first iPad until like 6 months ago. And I only got it because a friend had extra that they were handing out. It's an older one, and some apps are not able to be put on the iPad because of how old it is. But still, it's an iPad, and it plays one of my favorite games of all time that I have played since high school. But I had to ask my mom permission to get on the family computer to play it. But it's Roller Coaster Tycoon. I have either through Steam or CDs. I have every branch, model, scenario that they have come up with in that franchise, and I have beaten them all several hundred times over, but I still like playing them. But anyway, Roller Coaster Tycoon Classic is on the iPad, and I paid $5.99 for it, and I've been playing it for a couple weeks now. But it's just a good way to relax. But the point is, you don't need electronics to rule your life. I personally, and this is an opinion, everybody has opinions out there. Kids don't need the latest phone or the latest iPad or MacBook or whatever because it's not essential to their childhood. I mean, I know some schools nowadays are doing learning through, I think, iPads actually. I'm not sure. But that's all because of COVID, and they're getting too crowded to be able to have kids in actual classrooms. But growing up, our babysitter wasn't the PlayStation or the Xbox or anything like that. Mine personally was the tree out back and the pool that my mom worked harder than Hades to afford to be able to put up in our front yard. That was it. And twiddle my thumbs, like this right here. Of course, as I got older, I got into spades and rook and things like that. But it's just kids nowadays, and some adults, think that they have to have the latest technology that comes out and the latest Ooh, I just hit the tripod, sorry. The latest product. In reality, you don't. And honestly, 90% of modern day electronics tear up within 2 or 3 years, forcing you to buy new again. So why not just stick with the old and the classic because you know it works? One of my friends, I actually remember her name, I grew up with her, Samantha, and her family had a Nintendo. And me and her used to just sit there and play the old Battleship and Duck Hunt as a kid. But that wasn't until the later years. Her parents actually bought her, or I don't know if they built it, but it was like a little, you would call it a she shed by today's modern terms, or a playhouse. But it was made out of wood, and her dad had actually wired electricity to it so you could turn the lights on. But me and her had like that play furniture and the play fruit, and we would just pretend like we were cooking or doing a drive-through restaurant thing or whatever. We cherished times. That's the big thing right here. People are worried about the latest, greatest electronic whenever they need to be worried about their connections and the friendships that they have made in life. Um, that's one thing that my mom, she wishes that she would have gave me more. And I tell her all the time, Mom, you gave me more than the world. Because I grew up playing Monopoly and board games and cherishing friendships. Even though I was rough as a kid, and many people, I was undiagnosed, and the back then they said that a kid couldn't have multiple things like ADD and ADHD and bipolar. Nowadays we know better, but I wasn't medicated properly, and I was mean. Many people didn't want to be my friends, but the friends that I did have, I got to hang with, and I can't thank my mom for the life lessons that she instilled in me growing up. Because nowadays, I can put down my phone, I can put down the iPad. In fact, the only reason I have computers is to edit these videos. And yes, I said computers. I have an old desktop that is pretty much just for typing, which works because it helps my recovery program. And then I have a Chromebook that I pretty much do bill pay and everything on. And that's about it. I do have a work phone that's through Verizon, and it's a flip phone, but it's one of those heavy-duty construction phones that you can run over with a tire, and it still work 5 minutes later. It really doesn't work 5 minutes later, but I have one. But I leave it at work whenever I'm not actually on the clock. But the point is, get outside, be in the sun, go to the fairs, do the festivals, do all the things, because eventually those memories won't be there forever. And you'll be stuck with the babysitter of the new electronic that's costing you thousands. I think new iPhones are like $1,200 now. I'm like, $1,200? I'm going to put this in a real big eye opener because I just had an epiphany. You could spend $1,200 on that new iPhone, or you can pay your rent for a month, at least in the area that I live in. That's your dilemma. Do you really want to spend money on something that you carry around and distracts you, or would you rather put a roof over you and your family's head? Think about that one, because that is an epiphany. Yeah, I think that's about all I got. Cherish the memories, folks. Bye.